I mean, look, to understand really where Bitcoin is right now, you got to go back to 2018, 2019. Bitcoin had been up to 20,000 in the bull market. It drew all the way down to $3,000. What happened there, and Stanley Druckenmiller said it was the thing that convinced him to go buy Bitcoin, is that none of the Bitcoiners really sold. About 80% of the people who owned it at 20,000 still owned it
still at 56% long term right now. So there's no supply for it either.
It's highly illiquid. 76% hasn't been sold in the last year. 56% hasn't been sold in the last 2 years.
2 years, yeah.
And really what we saw, what drove Bitcoin's price from that $3,000 bottom to $69,000, I mean 23x in about 3 years, is that there was a supply and a demand shock. And we had printing of money, low interest rates, and we also got the halving. We look like we're headed right back to that. Right now we do have high interest rates and they're trying not to print money, but we have a $33.5 trillion debt. They're trying to fund 2 proxy wars. We have the southern border issue. We've got all sorts of inflation they're still trying to combat. And so what's likely to happen here is that they're going to have to return to loose monetary policy. When they do that, it is likely to coincide with the Bitcoin halving.
But near term, just talking about the ETF, you've got nothing has happened in the last 3 weeks to indicate it's any closer?
Well, I definitely think that it's closer, right? I mean,
because 3 weeks went by.
Well, 3 weeks went by, but also BlackRock is now going and they're seeding the fund.
They're seeding the fund in October, which is new?
Correct. And so they just amended the application. And so really what you're just seeing is they're getting prepared for the approval. The big question is, are they going to justify?
Do they know anything? They may know nothing either.
They may know nothing, but I don't think that BlackRock is going to go through all this effort, right? Remember, there's reputation risk here in terms of people know what they're doing. And so it's much more likely that it's going to get approved.
Do you need a different change on who's in charge? I mean, you've got 3 Democrats and 2 Republicans, right? Is that we had one of the Republicans on, and she said, I have no idea why. It makes no sense. It hasn't been approved yet. But that doesn't mean that she's going to convince her colleagues.
At the end of the day, Bitcoin doesn't care about the politics of it all, right? Now, the SEC and other organizations definitely care. Well, here's the thing is Bitcoin is just highly, highly disciplined, right? It is the most disciplined central bank in the world. It doesn't care what's going on in the news. It doesn't care about geopolitics. It just produces
but the price of Bitcoin does. The price of Bitcoin cares very much about what happens.
Bitcoin's up 100% to start this year, right? And I don't think a lot of people kind of recognize that because they remember it was at 69,000. It drew down to 15, but it's up 100% to start the year. And so when you look at that, the market is obviously telling us something. And what we're watching is capital is flowing.
Someone's calling it a flight to quality.
You've Not seen someone, like Larry Fink, right? Larry Fink
versus bonds. Let me see if I have this right. Can the government issue more than 21 million bonds?
The government can issue as much as they want.
Right, but how many Bitcoin?
One of the most important
21 million.
One of the most important details or kind of data points that I saw recently that really kind of opened my eyes was TLT from the high in 2020, 2021 is down about the same that Bitcoin is. And so where bonds used to be this flight to safety, now all of a sudden you're seeing people around the world say, look, some people are still buying bonds for sure, but there are some other people who are buying Bitcoin. And given that Bitcoin is the finite asset, I think that's ultimately where you get price appreciation.
Welcome to the Crypto Teacher. And you know I come back with that video just to make you think.
Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Support this great content by hitting the Cash App and by joining the Patreon.
And we have Pomp on CNBC speaking about Bitcoin, saying that the Fed has to turn back on the money printer. But guys, what he doesn't explain is the 4th Industrial Revolution. We're in a fragmented world. They want this whole economy to break, so therefore they can bring in the machines. And instead of going through hyperinflation, we're going to go through hyperdeflation. And that's the reason why the NWO wants everything tokenized and put on blockchain. Guys, you have to know the mission, so therefore you can invest and beat them to the punch. Yes, we're going to get a spot Bitcoin ETF. Yes, Bitcoin is volatile just like most stocks. And we know who pumped Bitcoin every time. That's right, the Fed. And each time they pumped it, it brought in more and more adoption. Remember the narrative. Bitcoin and crypto was supposed to replace the banks. Now we see the big banks and big corporations coming behind the curtain and running it all, especially these cloud services. But you know, on the Crypto Teacher channel, I told you from the beginning that the big banks and big corporations funded crypto from the beginning. And we're hearing from the Fed higher for longer. Do I think we're going to stay this high for long? No, I do not. But they're going to gradually bring us down, but they're going to have another event. Remember, the drums are beating right now, but we're going to have event after event that will allow the Fed to lower rates. And we're going to see more and more layoffs, so therefore they can bring in UBI, that universal basic income, so therefore they can airdrop this free money. Yes, we're $33 trillion in debt, but remember, they can easily turn that debt into equity. And don't forget, what's never talked about is China's Bitcoin. All that time they were mining Bitcoin, nobody talks about how much Bitcoin China has. And we know China and the emerging markets are going to be leading this fourth industrial revolution, where the robots, algorithms, and drones take the economy over, pay each other with crypto, and the sheep go inside the metaverse. And the NWO is one crisis away from making that happen. And remember, the Cryptoteacher told you.
So I think that the companies that deal with Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies, they care what Washington is doing, right? They're the ones who are spending the money. They're the ones who are doing this. Bitcoin is a decentralized protocol. Bitcoin's not spending any money. Bitcoin doesn't even have a team behind it. And so I think that the companies very much care, and they are lobbying, and they are trying to get these clarity of rules and try to push this forward. But Bitcoin itself, if the government tomorrow came out and banned Bitcoin, everyone else around the world would say, okay, and they probably would actually go buy it, because all of a sudden they would say, hey, this is outside the system. This is something that isn't controlled by any government. It isn't controlled by any individual. And so it's this very interesting thing where decentralization of the protocol really matters, but the companies, they're still centralized companies with American citizens running them, and they definitely care what is going on in Washington.
So you think when above the old highs, when and how much higher above the old highs?
Hundreds of % appreciation when we get to these bull markets has been the norm. I don't see that changing now.
And then back to where?
I mean, look, there's a cycle, right? It's very much.
I mean, it's a hideous, frightening cycle that just shakes you to the core when Bitcoin comes back down. It went to 17 from 65, right? 69.
People have been on this show for years now talking about all the stocks that went up a lot, they went down a lot, and over a long period of time, they were great investments. You just kind of hold through all the volatility.
Yeah.
I think Bitcoin is really just the true free market asset, right? There is no, circuit breakers. There is nobody bailing it out. When we saw FTX and other companies go under, the government didn't rush in to bail them out. They bailed out the banks. And so I think that there is this element of a free market asset is going to have way more volatility than something that's inside of the system.
You know what's a little weird this time, Anthony, is that you wouldn't say that there's been risk on in tech over that the right-hand side of that. This has not been a risk-on environment from 25 to 34. It's gone up 40% in a risk-off environment. So that almost looks like it's not correlated now, and that's where Fink got the flight that it's money, which to call Bitcoin quality is, in a lot of people's mind, that's anathema. Charlie Munger thinks it's rat shih tzu.
One of the things people have to remember is the best investors in the world act completely differently than the herd. And so right now the herd is saying we're risk off. Every great investor I know is going risk on. They're buying these assets at suppressed prices because they know what's going to happen. We're going to return to loose monetary policy and prices are going to go back up.
Are we though? Higher for longer. Higher for longer. Higher for longer.
You eventually run into math, and ultimately you have a $33.5 trillion debt. You added $500 billion in the last month. We're sending hundreds of billions of dollars around for these proxy wars. If you're going to continue to raise the national debt, you're going to have to inflate it away. And so loose monetary policy is going to be the standard over the coming.
And we have the Bankman movie continues. We have Scaramucci speaking about the Bankman getting on the stand. And we know Scaramucci was definitely in on the movie, just like Kevin O'Leary. They are all actors. And then we have Tony Dwyer on the hard or soft landing. And remember, guys, when they say hard or soft landing, they're talking about landing this whole global economy into the fourth industrial revolution. And he doesn't believe it's going to be a soft landing. He believes it's going to be a hard landing. And we know the NWO caused the problem, wait for the reaction, and run in with the solution. They're going to cause a crisis, so therefore the people beg for their solution that they already had 30, 40 years ago. And we know that's free money. We already seen the test 3 years ago. They ran all the tests they needed in order to bring in the real plan. Airdropping that free money. But little do people know that they will be told what, where, when, and how to buy, and they have 3 to 6 months to spend it or poof, it's gone. And remember, the crypto teacher told you, because he knows when it comes to the NWO, it's all planned out. You have a wonderful day.
When I get text messages from people, oh, of course I knew. Nobody knew. He was on the cover of Forbes and Fortune for a reason.
Yeah.
He was the good fraudster, Brian. And so he's going to get nailed here going on the stand. It's a very bad move for him. Going to trial was a very bad move for him, by the way. I'm surprised his parents let him do that.
Our whole case this year was that a soft landing economic scenario is the worst case scenario because it does create that higher interest rate environment. We've seen a 25% increase in rates on the long, intermediate, and long end just over the since mid-September. That ensures a recession rather than debate whether you're going to go into one, because that spike means you're going to have that much more of a slowdown in economic activity. So at some point, the higher you go in rates, the quicker it's going to shut down economic activity and the faster it's going to create to the other side of the mountain in rates.
So you don't think a soft landing is in the cards?
No, I don't. It would be historically unique on the leading economic indicators, on money. There's so many different areas that I see, and I understand that the unemployment rate's still low, but it's 0.4% off the low. Anytime you've been 0.5% off the cycle low, it's been right before or in a recession. So I think, between now and the first quarter, we're going to be in an economic recession. Most stocks reflect it. If you look at the number one question I get, Morgan, is, do you still think we're going to break last October's low? Because as you know, I've been pretty defensive for a year and a half now. And the answer is so many areas already are. The financials, the Russell 2000 small caps, the healthcare space. There's so many areas that are already beaten up and reflecting a pretty bad environment that as those rates come down, we're looking to get less pessimistic, more bullish. I don't care how you want to phrase it. As the market comes down, it gets as oversold as it is, and rates start coming down, that could be a good catalyst.
Going to a different economy, and we're going to be learning more about that as we go. But clearly, we're learning that things can be done from remote locations. We're learning that technology can replace people even more than we thought.
We're not going back to the same economy. We're recovering, but to a different economy, and it'll be one that is more leveraged to technology. And I worry that that is going to make it even more difficult than it was for many workers.
In Silicon Valley, and my friends who work in technology know that what we did to the manufacturing workers, we are now going to do to the retail workers, the call center workers, the fast food workers, the truck drivers, and then even bookkeepers, accountants, insurance agents, lawyers, and on through the economy. So what happened to the manufacturing workers is a very clear sign.
And so we'll import Chinese-based CBDC technology. So it's going to be CBDC in a box provided to you by the People's Bank of China.
But every stock, every bond, every currency, every commodity, every piece of art, every private business, every piece of real estate will eventually be a token on a blockchain, an entry on a ledger, permanent and immutable. We will have truth instead of trust, and we will save over $7 trillion a year. 6 to 8% of global GDP is wasted by the friction of the trust industry that's necessary when you have dual entry accounting. With triple entry accounting, which is what a blockchain is, we get rid of all of that friction. It's a beautiful future.
Like what you see in China and their social credit scoring systems, right? If we get identity wrong, it could be a tool to enslave humanity. And if we get it right, it could be a tool to liberate humanity. And as an American, I'm obviously rooting for the one that's on the side of freedom.
Bitcoin is an international asset. And also, I do believe the role of crypto is, it's digitizing gold.
I actually believe this technology is going to be very important. Look at it. We have been part of a huge revolution in investing through ETFs. We believe that ETFs will be changing the whole way we invest. Many people still use it as a means, people are investing it for indexing. No, the majority of people who are putting money in in ETFs are active investors that are buying exposure. The entire bond market is being transformed as we talk right now. I believe the next generation for markets, the next generation for securities will be tokenization of securities. And if we can have that distributed ledger that we know every beneficial owner, every beneficial seller, we all have our code of who's buying, who's selling, instantaneous settlement. And think about it, it changes the whole ecosystem.
Cryptoteacher and the New World Order book, plus the 3 kids books. It's time to re-educate. Also, new to cryptos, Coinbase, Bitrue, Binance. Do not forget book links and crypto links are in the description. The stock channel, guys. Don't forget to go like, subscribe, spread everywhere. You have your Kobo, your chip stocks, your banking, your gaming. While everybody's sitting at home, get on stocks, the Seaver, the biotech stocks. And while everybody's at home wishing they were still getting that free money, what are they doing? Drinking and smoking weed. Don't forget about those stocks, and you have a wonderful day. The most powerful person in the world is the storyteller. The storyteller sets the vision, values, and agenda of an entire generation to come. Steve Jobs. And guys, you know I truly believe in this. When you look at the New World Order, they're the storytellers. And that's the reason why I wrote my New World Order book. But guys, now it's time to change the current generation. And I wrote 3 kids books. You know, I love the Trinity because I understand the power that's in it. So I have 3 books. We have an opportunity to change the generation, to educate, not just me, but I want to show you that I take action on a daily basis. And I want you to take action on a daily basis. Whether it's your job, whether it's in your community, we have an opportunity right now to educate the masses. I posted this on my Twitter account. Please share, but this is a short clip of the 3 books. There's going to be a clothing line and action figures. Please get these books for your kids, nephews, cousins, friends, so therefore we can start the re-education now. Because as we see, the 4th Industrial Revolution foundation is definitely here. Robots, algorithms, drones, taking humanity out the picture. We have to re-educate. But let's get into the video.
Part 1. King Joshua and Grandma Tam save the village. Part 2. King Joshua and Grandma Tam save New York from COVID-33. Part 3. King Joshua and Grandma Tam goes to China.
It's mandatory to get part 1, part 2, and part 3 of this series. It's time to re-educate Generation Z.